Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another taping of the Ebo Sosa Show. I, of course, am your host, Ebo Sosa, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content that I'm bringing to you. I want to start by saying thank you for clicking on this video, giving me the most precious thing you can offer anyone doing YouTube, which is your time and attention, aside from contributions. If you choose to do so, please do so. Now, you see the title, and this actually is going to be a dedication show today. It's dedicated to a person that I do business with who asked me a question. You see, I was up at Uline doing a shuttle delivery and decided to go into the building and use the bathroom. Now, drivers aren't allowed to do this because they have porta potties for the drivers and we're supposed to use those. But see, y'all, I don't use porta potties. As George Bernard Shaw states, reasonable men adapt themselves to the world. Unreasonable men adapt the world to themselves. That's why all progress depends on unreasonable men. Anyways, I've become pretty acquainted with one of the supervisors there. This guy, his name is Adam. And we have deep conversations over lunch, and he asked me a question that I couldn't give an answer for the sake of time, of course. And I thought that I would respond to him in this format and also give my answer to an audience as well, besides keeping this personalized. Adam asked me, "What's wrong with black people?" Now, when he asked me that, ladies and gentlemen, of course I couldn't give him an answer because, well, that's quite it's going to require quite an extensive explanation, but needless to say, I am going to attempt to do so for you, Adam, right now on the Ebo Sosa Show. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. I greatly appreciate it. So he asked me, what's wrong with black people? Now, I'm sure many of you have been asked this question, and it seems to not really matter how we answer this, because many people who ask this question just cannot seem to see through our lens. As a matter of fact, it seems futile at times to try to get someone to understand our experience. That's just how it is, you know. We are who we are, and we have the lives we have. Needless to say, Adam, I noticed that you use ChatGPT a lot. So I would make an assumption that you respect the information that ChatGPT gives you. So what I decided to do is give you an answer using ChatGPT, because I know that you respect its advice and its knowledge. So when you type in what's wrong with black people, which I'm sure you've done because we've discussed that, and it gives you a generalized answer, it doesn't really give you anything in depth. So you have to tailor your question in a certain way. And unfortunately, the lenses that you see life through will not allow you to tailor a proper question and get an answer. So I'm going to do you a favor and utilize ChatGPT to get the answer to your question. So let's start. Well, I've already got it here. So I asked ChatGPT, what psychological effects would a person experience if they were captured, brought to a foreign land, separated, violently made subservient from demonstrations of torture and constraint and castration, of their peers, put into brutal slavery, stripped of their original names and identity, given a religion to worship where the deity looks exactly like their enslaver, restricted from reading, writing, and made to think that these conditions were the way God made the world. Also, how would this impact the offspring of these captured people, and how long would the effects last? Now, that is how you form a question. So let's get to the answer. This is for you, Adam. ChatGPT answers me and it says, Your question describes an extreme scenario of psychological trauma and social manipulation, an environment of systemic violence, dehumanization, and ideological control. Such circumstances can have profound and lasting effects on individuals and their descendants. Here's a detailed overview, and it continues. It says the psychological effects on the individual, and it gives 6. All right, so let's start with 1. It says, number 1, trauma and PTSD. Repeated exposure to violence, torture, and brutality can lead to severe post-traumatic stress disorders, or PTSD. Symptoms may include flashbacks, nightmares, hypervigilance, emotional numbness, and difficulty trusting others. Okay. Number 2, it says loss of identity and self-worth. Being stripped of one's name, culture, and personal history erodes a sense of self. The individual may experience identity confusion, feelings of worthlessness, shame, and loss of agency. Number 3, learned helplessness and submission. Constant violence and conditioning to accept suffering as divine will can lead to feelings of helplessness, resignation, and a sense of inevitable suffering, believing they cannot escape or change their circumstances. Number 4, internalized oppression and self-hate. If the oppressor's religion and imagery are made to resemble their own, individuals may internalize feelings of inferiority, shame, and self-hatred, believing themselves inherently inferior or cursed. That sounds very familiar. Like the Latter-day Saints belief system. Anyway, let's not go there. Number 5, cognitive dissonance and conditioning. Being conditioned to accept brutal reality as divine will causes cognitive dissonance, conflicting beliefs that the individual may struggle to reconcile. Over time, survival often depends on accepting the narrative imposed by the oppressors. And number 6, disrupted relationships and trust. Separation from loved ones, witnessing their suffering and betrayal by authority figures can fracture trust, leading to social withdrawal and dysfunctional relationships. Okay, now it gives the effects on offspring and generational impact. And now it gives us 4 here, 4 effects. Okay, number 1, it says intergenerational trauma. Trauma can be transmitted through behavioral patterns, emotional responses, and even genetic mechanisms, epigenetics. Offspring may inherit heightened stress responses, anxiety, or depression. Number 2, loss of language. Traditions and cultural identity can lead to a disconnection from ancestral roots and a diminished sense of cultural pride. Okay? Parenting under trauma. It says, parents who have experienced severe trauma may struggle with emotional regulations, leading to difficulties in parenting, which can perpetuate cycles of trauma and dysfunction. And believe me, Adam, there's a lot of that. There's our generational parenting. Oh man, there's been so much parental alienation. And look, let me continue. Number 4, altered worldview and expectations. Children raised in such environments may develop distorted perceptions of reality, authority, and morality, believing suffering and dehumanization are normal or divine. Okay? Now, psychological scars from extreme trauma can last a lifetime if untreated, often manifesting as chronic PTSD, depression, or anxiety disorders. Cultural and identity loss can have lasting effects across generations unless actively reclaiming and reconstructing healing. Okay, healing. It says actively reclaiming and reconstructed. Healing is a process but requires intensive psychological, social, and cultural rebuilding efforts. Therapy, community support, cultural revival, and education. Now, it says summary. In such a scenario, the psychological toll would be devastating. Individuals might experience deep trauma, identity loss, learned helplessness, and internalized depression. Their children and descendants could carry the trauma, cultural disconnection, and distorted worldviews for generations. Wow. The effects could persist for decades, even centuries, unless there is deliberate intervention, healing, and reclaiming of identity and agency. Wow. This is ChatGPT saying this, y'all. So then it says, yes, the effects you describe can be conceptually related to the idea. Oh, now, let me stop right now, okay? Because I also asked it a question. The question I asked it was, do black people have what's called wetiko? And I'm going to get off into that right now as far as what that means. It says, yes, the effects you describe can be conceptually related to the idea of wetiko, a American spiritual and cultural tradition, particularly among some Native Americans. Okay, so what is wetiko? Wetiko is often described as a spiritual or psychological illness, an insatiable greed, greediness, or hunger that manifests as a destructive force within individuals and communities. It symbolizes a kind of mind virus or sickness of the soul that leads to exploitation, violence, dehumanization, a loss of empathy and compassion, selfishness taken to destructive extremes. So you see, Adam, the conditions that you see on television and that the media display about black people, I'm giving you an explanation of why this is. You understand? You have to go and actually reverse engineer the conditions of the people. Okay? I'm explaining to you why the culture is the way it is. So, let me continue. In many indigenous teachings, wetiko is seen as a manifestation of the destructive aspects of colonialism, greed, and the loss of connection to community, nature, and spiritual values. You see, Adam, we have been stripped of all of these things, as I stated earlier in my question to ChatGPT. We have been totally stripped. We are an experiment here, okay? We were meant to be slaves from the divine. This is the conditioning, okay? So, let me continue. Connecting the effects to wetiko, the effects that I stated earlier. The psychological and social effects you described, trauma, dehumanization, loss of identity, internalized depression, and intergenerational trauma can be viewed through the lens of wetiko as a kind of spiritual or mental contagion. Here's how. Dehumanization and oppression. All right, systemic violence and cultural annihilation resembles the wetiko spirit's hunger for domination and exploitation. The loss of empathy and humanity, all right? The internalized self-hate, guilt, and broken trust mirrors wetiko's tendency to erode compassion and communal bonds. How many brothers have you seen go at one another but totally ignore the real problem? How many sisters have you seen perming their hair, putting blonde dye in their hair, but wearing blue contacts, trying to imitate European standards of beauty? Okay, let me continue. Intergenerational trauma. The transmission of trauma and cultural disconnection aligns with wetiko's capacity to infect entire communities across generations. Greed and exploitation. I know you see a lot of that in our culture, especially in our music. Greed and exploitation, the violent, enslaving conditions reflect wetiko's insatiable appetite for destruction and consumption. In essence, yes, the effects could be classified as manifestations of wetiko, especially when viewed as a destructive force rooted in greed, exploitation, and spiritual sickness. The wetiko archetype or spirit emphasizes the importance of awareness, healing, and reclaiming compassion to counteract this destructive influence. And the final note states the concept of Wetiko offers a powerful framework for understanding systemic violence, trauma, and dehumanization as not merely individual psychological issues, but as spiritual sicknesses that afflict entire communities and cultures. Recognizing this can be a step towards healing by confronting Wetiko, reclaiming empathy, and restoring balance and harmony in ourselves and our societies. Okay, so now, basically, Adam, that's the answer I got. Okay, now, me personally, brother, I acknowledge that we have problems, and you're going to continue to see it because there's like there's so much in place that benefits from our problems. There's so many entities in place that literally profit off of our problems. They've turned our problems into a show, into something to be viewed and marveled at, Let me find this. I'm trying to find something here. I have a book I want to read something from. Where is it here? I don't think I'm going to be able to find it, y'all. That elaborates a little bit more on Wetiko. But like I said, we have a problem, okay? We have a problem, and solving a problem requires that we take responsibility for it first. This is my problem. I will study it. I will master it. I will take responsibility for it, and I will act to do that which I can do, okay? Taking responsibility is not something that's encouraged with us, Adam. We are encouraged to be victims. We are encouraged to blame them, as I do my hands in air quotes. In doing so, we give away our power. We reject the opportunity to take responsibility, to identify our complicity in the process, and by changing how we feel and act to reinvent our world, individually and collectively, okay? And I hope that I have given you an answer that you can respect, and I want you to play this back a few times so that you memorize it. And whenever you have discussions amongst your peers, amongst your people, because I don't trust you, I know people like you. I know that when you're around your peers, you probably are very, very racist. You don't think that I can see through a lot of the nonverbal cues that you give, but I see you, Adam. But I am not one to condemn you. I think that I would rather pose a position of assistance and help you understand your thought process, give you clarity on what it is that you have to be around, namely us, me, black people. All right. Now, and also, let's even consider that black people. Every name that we've been assigned in this country has been given to us from our colonizers. Black. What is black? Black is the worst thing you can be called in according to the definitions of black in the dictionaries, okay? It's tied to everything wicked and fearful, and then there's colored, there's nigger. Anything that we've been called has been given to us from our colonizers, and we have internalized this and accepted it. You see, Adam? We are truly, truly messed up. And now there are those of us who understand these things and taking the necessary steps for us to climb out of this hole. But you see, we're buried under generations of these teachings, okay, of these conditions. And it's not something that can just be solved in a 50-year period. You see what happened to the men that came back from Vietnam, and that wasn't but so long. These guys are still traumatized to this day. Now, imagine over 400 years of trauma. And it's continuing, you see. It's still among us. So, I'm going to close out this video now. I hope that you, the audience, have been enlightened. I hope, Adam, that you have been enlightened and you have gained some clarity as to the questions that you ask of me. So, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you farewell. Please like and subscribe to the channel as I stated earlier. And I look forward to bringing you more content. This is Ebo Sosa signing off. Peace.